And we're live. Hello, everybody. I hope you can see me because I see a black screen for some reason. There we are. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Are we live in D-Live? We're live in D-Live. Good. And today we're also live on Telegram. I hope that works. I have no idea. In fact, let me just quickly check if it's working. I have no idea. It looks like it's not working. Oh, well, then that saves some work for my mod. Anyway, today we're here with Alexandra, or Alexa, is it?
Yes.
Yes. And she actually is from Canada. Well, originally Poland, right?
Well, that's my background, but I live in Canada.
All right. And so, as you all may have seen, I've done a video on a BQH session, and that was with her. And then the next day she did the one on me. And so actually, before I start, let me say hi to Leyland. Good to see you, Dennis. And whoever else is going to come in the chat, we'll see. I don't see it yet in my Restream chat. Anyway, so, and today we're going to be talking about that session because there were some very interesting things. And she only saw that video today, and I put it together with all sorts of pictures. And yeah, that's what we're going to go over. And before I'm going to do that, just remember that if you like, we have a discount on the, what's it called again? Orgonite. It's in the description if you like. Anyway, so we did, our session was in December, right?
Yeah.
And so I did the session on you first, and you find yourself there. And I didn't actually show the part where you were the crystal, but we're going to get to that. And so, yeah, that was amazing. And so we were talking about you were actually in at first we didn't know, but it was Lemuria. And
yeah.
You never had heard from it, of it?
No, I have, but in the very beginning, and I think Patricia, like when you regress to a place, you don't immediately, at least for me, I don't immediately know where I am.
Right? No, we don't.
Yeah.
But it was, for me, it became very quickly very clear, especially when you said it's somewhere like Hawaii, Australia, and immediately, because I knew that from maps that I've seen from Lemuria where it was. And so then you find yourself there, and well, the whole story is obviously in the session, but then the next day you did the session on me, and I find myself there right at the same place as a man. And so what was interesting to me, because I made that video with pictures, it's both our sessions together back to back about that specific part in the session, because I didn't obviously show the whole session. Hello, Norma, good to see you. And so so I picked the pictures based on what it felt like for me there. Obviously, I couldn't be very accurate. I even used like very much fantasy pictures. But my question to you was, did you feel the same vibe within these pictures?
100%. So when I was first watching, sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear the ambulance. I live downtown.
Oh, no worries.
When I was watching the video that you made, so as I was telling you, because this was back in December, it was kind of vague to me. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember it, but it wasn't like vivid, right? If I'm sitting here and I'm forced to think about it. And then when I was watching your video that you made with the images, I'm like, it's like Patricia was there with me, because all the images were kind of bringing back what I was seeing, what I was feeling, and it was just like you were actually living that experience with me. So
right. And I was curious about it, because obviously we did talk after the session, but we never pointed out like how accurate was, because people that have a quantum hypnosis session, obviously you always see things and all that, but you never have kind of proof, like, was it the same place? But in this case, it was so special because we both were in the same place in two different sessions. And so my question to you was like, if you describe because during a session, you obviously describe some, but not very detailed because you are viewing it, right? You say to me, okay, I see this or that, but you see so much more than you actually say. And so I was wondering, like, do you still remember the things that you saw very specifically or that stood out?
Oh, I remember being in I guess you can say the market or the bazaar. And even when I was just listening to the session that again took place, 2-3 months ago?
Yeah, December.
Yeah, I was even like, I don't use the word bazaar. So to me, that's a huge, I was like, I never say bazaar. That's not
Yeah.
a word in my brain, right? And so I do remember that, and like the angle that I was facing. And I remember the buildings. Like I just remember how it was sandy, kind
Yeah.
of looking rough texture. And so the pictures that you used, Patricia, it was like you were almost taking that image out of my mind and putting it. Obviously, it can't be like exact,
No.
right? But it was so similar where it was like invoking those feelings in me where I was like, whoa, I'm
Yes.
re-experiencing this again, right?
And I had that picture of the sandy houses, but it was much greener around it, right? There was much more green, palm trees kind of things.
Yes, yes. But I also just remember like what was standing out for me was for some reason that like sandy, rough, te- for whatever reason, that's what was really standing out to me. Probably because that is not something I see every
Yeah.
day, right? Like I live in a concrete jungle. I see condos
Yeah.
that are gray every day, right? So to me, being there, it was like, it was strange but exciting at the same time, right?
Right. And so, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but after that, because it was a lot about the crystals. And I've noticed, Leyland, I've seen it didn't work. Anyway, in Telegram, the stream did work. So yeah, whatever. But I mean, you were, hi, Tyler, good to see you. So we were in Lemuria, but then you talked a lot about the crystals, but then in the next life, you were the crystal. And I didn't even know that from about you because we only talked about it afterwards, is that you never, ever had crystals. You never worked with them. You never had them, nothing. And so it was so interesting that you became the crystal, and then from there you understood what the crystal actually are for. Okay, do you want to tell a bit about that?
Um, well, like you said, it was a super interesting experience because I don't normally work with crystals. I know people that do, and I know kind of like the things that people do with them. I don't know. It's just never been really in my perception or my reality really to work with them, right? So being in that scene, it was very interesting. It was kind of like my consciousness was a part of these, it was like a field of crystals or a group of crystals. That's what I remember. It was like on a beach as well, or near water, something like that. And I felt like us, the crystals, can almost like transmute and kind of like gather information, whatever information was stored in us, right? And then we can just send it out.
Oh wow, I didn't even think. Oh yeah, because um so you not only like gather information, you also transmit it out again
Yes, yes,
in
yes,
energy.
Yes. Yeah. So I can't remember which part of the scene, but I do remember people gathering around the crystals. And these were huge crystals. These weren't like small ones. These were gigantic crystals. And that people were putting in information into these crystals. Right.
Because they were aware that it was possible to do that. Obviously, I was there, but I didn't see that part. You don't always get to see everything and all the knowledge that they have. So, and that was for you the case because, you know, you got to see things that were relevant for you only to then later become that crystal, which was so interesting. And so the people there already knew what the crystals were capable of, and they were probably capable of connecting with these crystals. And so you being the crystal, can you remember what it was like?
Well, it felt like I felt neutral, right? Like it wasn't like,
yeah, there's no judgment.
There's no like emotions or thinking about stuff. It was very neutral way of being. It was just being, right?
Right.
Just be. And it's almost like the purpose that we, the crystals, had was to store and transmit information, right? Like that's kind of what I felt. And we were just kind of there to be used for this information.
Right.
That's what I remember feeling.
So, because I find it so interesting. So then I was there, you were there, and there was one picture that I put in the video which shows this underwater and then above water, and there is a dolphin in the water. When I found that picture, I instantly thought, that's it, right? And it was so green everywhere and so beautiful, but so much water too. And right. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the idea that you both are there in two separate sessions and then literally seeing the same things is so amazing. And so I was talking to my friend, and they work with the ideas from the Monroe Institute. And so they would be in a group, and then one of them would find a place where he would go with his consciousness, and he would leave things behind for each and every one of them. And so they would all go in the meditation and try to find that place and then describe it, but then also find whatever he left behind for that specific person. And they were all spot on. And so, and that idea is made me think of our session, because obviously this is, well, time doesn't really exist, is it? So, but then it was in the past, like thousands and thousands of years ago. So, you know, if we're capable of doing that, you know, that comes so close to, oh, what would I say? Like kind of having a life outside of this whole 3D thing, just in the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I found that idea really interesting, because I do believe we're getting closer and closer to being able to do it. The whole point is we need to know it first, that it is possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's so interesting how consciousness does work, right? We're just beginning to really understand and tap in. And like when you and I had that session, Patricia, that was my first time. So when you went back to that same place and you were experiencing the same things, I was in shock. That was my first time, because I never experienced something like that with,
yeah, me neither,
with someone else, right?
Right. And I mean, obviously it wasn't coincidence, because I remember, because you and this was so freaking, usually when you say, right, we're going to the last day of your life, the day of your death, but I knew already inside, I know she's not going to die, but you didn't say it yet. Yeah. And then you kept saying transformation. I'm going to, no, you didn't say transformation. Well, what's it called?
Transition.
And you kept saying transition. And then I asked you, like, is it like death? No, it's a transition. and I was blown away by that, because at that moment, I actually, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, there's a video I made last week about both our sessions, which I put one after the other. There were some audio problems, but whatever, just go watch it and you understand what we're talking about. So so you kept saying transition, but then you got stuck in that light, in that flash, and I kind of knew what might possibly be happening, because at the time of Atlantis, Lemuria, that all went down. And then you start talking about the chaos, how everybody is fighting with each other. And so at the like they are all now the same thing. And so you said, like, there is this big the ego is coming up for a lot of people, and in Lemuria they stayed with the whole nature things, kind of things. And so that was also the reason why we did that transition. And so the next day when I had the session, I experienced that transition, and that was so amazing that actually I finished where you left off as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do you look at it? Because there's so much to say about this.
Oh, well, again, it was a really interesting experience, and it really goes to show how connected everything is. Everything is. Like, that was one session that really made me open my eyes, because again, it wasn't anything like I've ever experienced with other sessions. And it just shows how consciousness really works, right? Because obviously we had this session for a reason. And there was a reason why you continued where I left off. And it was just, I don't know, I still get goosebumps thinking about it, because it was fascinating.
It was. Well, and essentially we only did the sessions with each other as practice. And this came out, and so it also made me think that with all the people we are here around the world, we already have lived many lives with each other. I do think that's also the reason why we encounter each other. But then if you connect that to what my friend was talking about from the Monroe Institute, and how they experimented with going to a place, because if time doesn't exist, you can go to any place. And then the most of the group all found that place, and then even found what he left behind for them. And so with that idea, I think that is, I wonder if that is the reason why in the 5D, the whole materialistic thing is really futile. Because if you can do it with your consciousness, it's not like you can get, I left you something behind. It's not like you can do something with it, but it's just the knowledge behind everything. And because everything feels so much richer, just like you do in a session, it's so real.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I don't know for you, Patricia, is the visual more like that's what you see or feel more? Because for me, it's more of the feeling that I get.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's true, because not everybody is very visual in a session, and many people don't know, and they think that if you do a session, I'm not very good with visualizing. That doesn't mean anything, because you actually experienced it full on while not being able to visualize that well, but you can actually feel and still describe what it actually is. I found that amazing, because I'm very visual. So how do you do that? Also for people that actually, themselves are not that visual. So maybe you can help them with that.
I think a good place to start is just understanding how your senses play out? Like, what do you usually use as a sense? Most of the time I am visual, but I've always remembered that even when I was younger, there was like an inner knowing that was such a strong feeling, like that gut feeling, that intuition, right?
Right.
It was huge in me. And I guess that's like my first kind of the strongest sense. So when I started doing the BQH sessions, that really came out super strongly. I just knew before I even saw sometimes, right?
Right.
Or how certain words or sentences were almost like downloaded into me, right? And it's not like a download where I'm waiting for something to come into me. It's literally just a stream of consciousness. And
Yeah.
I can't help it, but I'm saying it as this is like streaming through, right?
That is so interesting. I didn't think of that because that does happen to me. It's just that I'm very focused on the visual thing, but sometimes I'm saying things before I actually see them. And
Yeah.
I found that interesting as well. Well, with your session, I actually can see from your eyes, which is kind of a telepathy. And I knew exactly. So you were the first one where I started to test if what I saw was correct. And you were, I mean, spot on with everything I had in my head. You actually described it. And that was so weird. But from there, now it's normal for me to do. I instantly see what somebody is talking about, and I see more than what they say. And so that makes it amazing doing sessions with people because now I get to actually experience it as well. So I love that.
You can
But
actually help guide them, which I think you did even in my case a little bit, because
yeah,
yeah, sometimes for someone like me, what I'm seeing can be a little bit blurry, but I know what's going on, right? And then you are asking me questions that, you're whatever you're seeing, right? You're asking me questions that are like, is it this? You're kind of leading me through, and I'm like, oh yeah, wait a minute, this is getting clearer for me, right? And
right.
I can see it more clear, right?
Right. But because you use more your feeling side, but it's kind of, it's almost like you can see with your feelings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I noticed that you were like really long with your answers. And that's more because when you visualize, you can describe things much easier. That's why I can talk really fast because everything is already like a film in front of my eyes. And so it's not so much the feeling I'm, tuned into. And so about the sandy houses, before you said it, I already knew it. And so I asked you, like, what does it look like around you? And you described it word for word what I saw. And it was so freaking interesting. And well, and it was obviously even more mind-blowing that I found myself there. And so there's also this part where you describe um, how everything is connected to nature, right? And I hoped I could uh, picture that well in that video.
Oh, I think you did. When I was watching, everything was just so accurate. That's why I was saying it's like you were literally in my mind when I was seeing and experiencing all these things, right? You did a fantastic job.
Yeah, oh, I love doing it as well. But yeah, it took me a long time finding all these pictures, but every time I saw one, that's the one, that's what it looked like. Because there were some of these houses that I think are from Egypt, these kind of sandy block houses, but it looked more lush around it, I guess. Yeah, it's still a village, and that, just like you use words that you never use usually, right? And all of a sudden, boom, you throw in words, and then only later when you listen back to the session, you're like, hang on, what? I would never ever describe things that way.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's that's almost your confirmation that it's like it's not really coming through this persona that is you or me, right? It's like
Right.
this stream of consciousness that is coming through us. And it's just, it's a beautiful experience. Like for people that actually do this session, it's a beautiful experience.
So you can also do tandem sessions, what they call,
Yeah.
right? I just don't understand exactly what that means. Does that mean that both are in the same spot during a session?
That's what I think. That's what I think. So one person, I guess, is fully, well, both people are regressed, but that one is speaking through their consciousness, like their consciousness connect.
Right, but if their consciousness connect, then how does that work? Does it mean that, like, say two friends have a session together, are they going to find themselves in the same place?
Hmm.
You
I
know?
don't, yeah, I don't know. Because I haven't done, have you done or know of anybody?
No, I'm very curious about it because I wonder if you can pinpoint a place where you can go to, since you already know that you've been there. Say you and I, we want to go back to Lemuria and see what's going on. So now we're going to do a tandem session with somebody that's facilitating, obviously, two people that need to facilitate. I wonder if you then can actually find yourself there in that same place. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, based off of you and I, that's kind of what happened, right?
yeah, although it did happen a day apart, but I was flabbergasted in the first place I was there because I found myself in a complete different place in that village than where you were.
But it was
And
just from a different perspective, right?
yes,
Because I was seeing through one lens and you were seeing from another, but it became like a whole picture because of that, right?
exactly. And I said also, I know you are there. And it was like I could actually connect to you with my consciousness. I could connect to you right there. And I knew that you were actually going through that phase of that transition, or you were waiting for it still. But in any case, I knew that because it wasn't that big of a village either, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not like, well, what is big actually in those times, right? But it's very, probably very widely built and not so much dense
Yes.
onto each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wow. And so what, how have you experienced it after your session? I wonder, did you know, get something that out of it that you thought back to that session often thinking, holy crap, this is
Well, the funny thing is it did open my eyes to crystals. Like again, that's a whole new world for me. Again, not that I don't believe in it. I just know that some people really love using that medium, right?
right.
And I was just someone who just, I don't know, I never really went that route, right? And so when I saw how important and valued the crystals were at that time, it started kind of, I started thinking about it a little bit more and thinking like, maybe this is something I should incorporate, right? I'm still not there, but I actually, I don't know if you remember, Patricia, but I did message you, what was it, a week after, I think
Yes.
that I went to a crystal store and the first crystal that I was attracted to, not that I was,
Yeah, because they told you when you go buy crystal, make sure that you just feel it, right? You just know. It's not like you take a random crystal, right? It never goes that way with anything, really. But especially with crystals, it kind of calls to you,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Go
So
on.
I just kind of went into the crystal shop and I was just guided, you can say. And the first one I picked up was a Lumerian one. I was like, okay, that's funny.
Well, yeah, no, that's no coincidences, right?
No,
So
no.
then with the knowledge that you learned within that session as being a crystal, how did you implement that, or how did you look at the crystal or whatever?
Oh, that it can really store information and probably already has it. What I felt like, there is information inside of them already that we can
Right.
utilize and tap into, but at the same time that we can in a way, I guess, store our intentions
Right.
in the crystals. That's how I felt like. And so, yeah, looking at them now, it's like they're this portal of information.
So then how about the receiving from them?
How
What do
have
you,
I been receiving from them?
right,
Oh, well, I'm still new. I'm still
right.
new.
Go ahead.
This has been like a slow journey, but when I picked that, because I bought that crystal, right? I was like, this is not a coincidence at all. I actually started using it to communicate and develop more of a relationship with my higher self. Because I got
Oh, a
the
pendle.
yeah.
Wow. That is so, because, for those that don't know, if you lose a crystal or if it breaks, it's because it wasn't supposed to be with you anymore. And that happened to me actually, and you literally can't find it. You have no clue where the hell it went, right? Or if it even went somewhere, but if I just lose it, I don't know. But I definitely have been working with crystals all for a long time and having them, and I literally see them almost as pets, kind of. I'm really emotionally attached to them, like, kind of, yeah. And everyone has a different feeling for me. So yeah, I definitely pick always the one that I need at that moment for my mood.
But is
Or
it a feeling that you program into it, or is it something that that, it
no, it's like, it's almost like you have a relationship with that crystal. It's like, and with every, just like with every relationship, they're all different, right? And so I have this tiger eye. I have it for a long time, and it's, well, like this big, and I hold it, and I instantly feel protected as well. And yeah, that's kind of my protective, and it's almost like, and I feel it communicating with me as well. Yeah. um I get like what people call downloads or messages, stuff like that.
Mhm.
um Immediately advice as well, right? And so for those that don't know, you may want to experiment with that. And and you feel it also warm up in your hands, because at the beginning when you hold it, it's really cold, right? And then all of a sudden it starts warming up, and I don't know what it is. It's so special. So I wonder if you already have experienced that kind of thing.
I'm slowly getting more into it. I just recently purchased also another one, a clear quartz. So I'm still new to this. This is still a new world to me in terms of crystals. But that session really did help me see how amazing that they are and why they are so powerful and why some people really do enjoy using them. Um, I'm curious though, Patricia, when I was the consciousness of crystals, how are you receiving that? Because I know you work with them, right? So
Well, I was really curious what it was like from the crystal's perspective, obviously. And I remember you saying that we gather information, or we store that information, but we also transmit, we also heal. There is so many uses for, well, or missions, I guess, that crystals have. And so I wanted to understand as well, since you were crystal, um, if you also choose not to store certain information, like say, I have a crystal and I'm like emotionally distraught, is that crystal, well, obviously it's not going to judge, but is it going to store that information? I guess it will, would it?
I think so. I don't remember like that specific, part. Or I don't, did you ask that question when we were doing this? I
I
can't remember.
haven't, which is really stupid. But if anybody ever has a session with me that is a crystal, I have 1,000 more questions, because I wasn't prepared for that one, right? When it came, I was like, what am I going to ask? What am I going to ask? Right. And obviously, you asked the obvious questions, but now I have so many more questions that I could have asked. And, I can't. So I just hope to have a session with somebody that is going to be a crystal, so I can ask more questions about it, because I'm really curious how that works. But at the same time, I know because you said it's not judgmental. It just is.
Yeah.
And therefore it can store anything. It's not going to do anything with it. It's not like it's going to feel sad, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I didn't feel like as the crystal that we were going to go and do something with this information. It was just a purpose of holding that information.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then the people also went to the crystals to receive healing. Yes. Right? Yeah. So can you remember how they did that? Because I remember you saying that they were hugging them as well.
I think, again, this was a couple months ago. I think there was an intention. Intention is huge. It's really, it's huge. It's a process of like, you know, sending out your energy to somewhere to receive it back to you, right? So I really feel like there was an intention with whatever they were doing.
Wow.
Maybe you just do something to do it without the intention. It's not really gonna, you know, it's not.
Yeah, of course. And because a crystal does react to that as well. So I just want to, because you're a practitioner, are there any, you know, great stories that you have from clients that you have had that, you know, I remember you actually being on the forum talking about having also children going through sessions.
Yes.
I think that would be so much fun to do, I think.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Every single BQH session, and I'm sure you know as well, it is an adventure. It's like your clients take you on a completely different adventure, and you can never expect what's going to happen. Yeah, or where they're going to be, what they're going to experience. And it's very interesting to see what people experience and what they need to experience, right? Because I believe that whatever that person is experiencing, it's like they need to see that, they need to experience that, right? Because some people want to for example, see a past life, but sometimes they don't even go to past life. They might go to either a future life or be the consciousness of, I had someone be mushrooms, for example. And yeah, but the thing is, she actually had a big connection with mushrooms. So that was something that she needed at that time, right? But the session with the young girl, so the girl was 13. I think she was 13 years old.
Okay, wow.
And
was it easy to guide them in there? Because I don't know, I think it is actually, because children have much more, you know, they're much more connected even without them knowing it.
Yes, it was. I could already tell that she was responding quite quickly, because for some adults it does take a little bit of time, which is okay, right?
Yeah.
But no, I could tell her body was twitching. I was like, okay, she's in there, right? And did you listen to that session? Because I did post it on.
I didn't. Oh my God, I should have done that. I put it on my to-do list and I forgot completely about it. Can you actually talk about it? Because I'm really curious. And I did put all her links down in the description, and her YouTube is in there as well, because you put it on your YouTube, right?
Yeah, because it was such a beautiful session for a 13-year-old girl. Like, obviously she didn't really go to a past life or a future life, right? It was more of I almost want to say a spiritual journey for her, because she did have questions, but I didn't include them because they were a little bit personal. I included maybe 2 or 3 because they were so beautiful. And she actually went on a journey with dolphins, and I didn't even know she had a huge connection with dolphins. And eventually she went even out to outer space, where the dolphins took her to a certain planet. Like, it was a very beautiful journey. And she actually did get the answers that she was looking for. And it is kind of interesting because she's 13, she's young, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even think that someone so young would have questions, because she had questions of like, what's my life purpose? What am I here for? I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
wow.
this is a spiritual child, right? Like
Right.
it's beautiful, right? But it was the whole time her journey was super positive, super light. And I think that's also what she needed, right?
Right.
To experience, right? To
But
feel.
then, so she found herself in that session as herself.
Yes, it was, she had a very throughout the whole session, pretty much a close connection with these dolphins, almost like they were her guides, right? And they were
Wow.
taking her through this journey through the woods. I remember there being the woods, and then at some point we traveled to space, to outer space, and yeah, no, it was a very, very beautiful session for someone so young. And that was my first time, doing that session for a young person, right?
Wow. Yeah. I think children are very, I think when children have traumas, I think they would be really, really helped with sessions like this because they can connect much better. And they can also transmute then their trauma much better. Although many do, but then as adults, we're like, yeah, I don't know if it's real. And so you start to manifest your own crap again, right? Even if you went in the session to get rid of it. Now, I did have that people got rid of their traumas, absolutely. But we tend to be stubborn as adults. So I think this for children is amazing. And you can be, I guess, more creative with it.
Yeah, well, what I found interesting is that her induction didn't take as long at all.
Right.
It was quite short. It didn't need to be long because I can just tell like she was already in, and she was telling me herself that she was starting to see lights, which is common. I don't know if you found that with other
Yeah.
people, that seeing lights is a very common thing. So I already knew that we were in. And so I was just guiding her through the process, right? And it was a very positive and supporting session for her, for what
Right.
she needed, right?
So did her mom ask for it
So
or?
the interesting thing is that her mom had the session first. She
Oh,
experienced her own transformation and experience. The funny thing is, she went back, so her mom went back to being a life as a giant mouse. And I did also post that, like, if anyone else had an experience with being a mouse like being, right? Because she was like, it's not Earth. It's not Earth for sure.
oh,
It
oh,
was
she
like,
wasn't on Earth.
no, it was another planet, but she said there was a lot of rocks, mountains, like a completely like almost desert like almost
Right.
terrain. And yeah, she was this male mouse.
So what was that like? I mean, it's so fascinating, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting because after we had that session, we did talk about it. She's like, this is stuff I would never say. She's like, I would never think of myself as a mouse. Like it was bizarre to her, right? And in the scene in the session, when she was a mouse, she actually was scared to go into this cave, right?
Right.
The interesting thing is that she is a fearful person of certain things, like really simple things, and she knows that, right?
Hmm.
um she at first didn't want to go into the cave because she was scared, though she saw herself as this like big muscular mouse like being, because it was like a mouse like being that stands up, walks,
Right, right,
talks,
right,
has a family and village. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting because usually mice are scared, right? They're usually
right. Yeah.
scared of, right?
It's
But
so interesting how these beings reflect often also the animals we have here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That also was my first time. Like mouse like being, okay, wow, that is interesting, right? And And so at first she didn't want to go into the cave, and I was okay, I'm not going to force you, right? And she went into the village. She saw her family, and one of the other mice that she recognized was I believe it was her grandmother, but her grandmother passed. And what's interesting, her grandmother later in the session came around and actually connected with her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a very, like, she actually started crying in the session and saying like, wow, I needed this. I needed this connection, right? And anyway, moving along, she eventually did go into the cave, and she saw she was scared to go in, but she's like, I need to go in. I need to face my fear, which was interesting because again, this is a theme that showed up in her life, right?
Right.
And she heard crying, and I myself sometimes am like, oh, okay, what are we gonna deal with, right? Like, be prepared, right? And she kept walking towards hearing someone crying. She kept walking towards it, and she eventually saw a little version of herself, so her like child self.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's very symbolic, though.
exactly. That's what we were talking about afterwards, is that she came in as this mouse-like being with muscles and everything, right? And she essentially saved herself by being this mouse, because she hugged her, like, her child self, and her child self started to feel better, because at first she was like, she's really scared, she's crying, she doesn't know what I'm going to do, etc., etc. And I guided her through, like, okay, let's work with this, right? Like, why is
Right.
this showing up? And eventually she calmed down and got over that fear. And it was really interesting. Like, it was a very eye-opening session. So because of that, her daughter heard about it, and her daughter expressed how she wanted to try the session for herself as well.
Right. And you know what I love, especially with these traumas, right? Because I had one client like that too. And she suffered from insomnia really bad, and she experienced sexual abuse. And it was actually the first session I did, which was considering or quite scary. But at the same time, I instantly knew what to do. And so we find ourselves in this life that she is in now, which is something that was already said, well, that's really rare, right? And it happened for me like right on the spot the first time. And so she found herself in that situation where she was abused. And so I asked her to interact with her as a child, and, and do the hugging and all that. And eventually, it neutralized the whole trauma, which then got her also off the insomnia, which was amazing. And, but yeah, I love how, because trauma can manifest so in such a complex way, but also the solutions are often in a way that you never expect.
Yes.
Right. And so did you have any other clients that were really interesting for you that you remember?
Well, I had one other with another BQH therapist as well, that I actually did also post on my channel, because I think this was my first BQH session.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure. And what was actually very interesting about that one is she was three beings. So she was an ET, a monk, but it was like a spirit guide, and something else. And I forgot what the other, but she was three beings
at once.
At once, yeah. And
oh, wow,
so interesting. It was actually, that session was mainly talking about manifestation,
right?
How to manifest. And it was so interesting because it was, a lot of the messages obviously are for her, but I posted that session because I was like, this is a message also for everyone else, right?
Yeah.
And how consistent it was about like the way to actually manifest, right?
Right.
It was yeah, that was a very, very interesting, spectacular session, because I've never also had a session where it was the consciousness of three.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been really confusing when she started describing.
Yeah, no, you know what? It was even for her, but she also did a really good job of understanding, wait a minute, this is a collective consciousness
Oh,
of the
wow.
ET. It was almost like her soul family that's connected to her in this current life, right? And
Right.
they're helping to guide her and all of this. And so yeah, she recognized, like, wow, I'm the collective of these three, like, different,
Yeah.
because she also said it's like the version of herself, but like a different version of herself,
But
right?
were those also the lives that she actually lived, or was it more like something, well, the guides that she saw that are part of her?
You know what? That's what I understood. And I think she understood that too. But being in like this reality, we can't really grasp that, right?
Right, right. That's so
So,
true. Yeah, that's so difficult
yeah.
because
It,
sometimes you see a life, because I've done many sessions been done on me, and then you see the life and you wonder, is this like a life that I really had, or is it because it's something symbolic that you get to see? And from others, I am sure that I lived that life, right? So there is quite a distinction between one or the other, is my experience. And so the back to the Lemuria thing that we experienced both. The reason that, besides the fact that we both had that same experience, is also the message behind it is that transition. So we find ourselves right now in this chaos world, right? And so people say, oh, we're going to ascend to 5D. I do see that Lemuria at that time was the place that ascended. However, I do think that the Atlantis, they actually fell,
yeah.
as in destruction, right? And so, and I remember, and I was reminded of it after our sessions when I was watching Matthias de Stefano, who is from Atlantis, because he remembered his life on Atlantis.
Yeah.
And he was talking and he said, yeah, for all you Lemurians out there, I know you guys hate us. And I'm like, well, that's so interesting, because
Right.
I remember there was, because the worlds were so far apart, but at the same time, you're really close to each other because everything, I don't know, I guess transportation was different, right? But I know that there were those people like the Lemurians that try to be one with nature and stay
Mhm.
true to your own consciousness and all that, right? And well, on Atlantis, they went full blown ego at a certain point, right? And so and then it becomes obviously, conquering for power and all that with other different parts of the world. And so the message in this one sessions that we had is, I guess, points to whatever we're going through right now. So the whole ascension thing is because I remember we needed to be really true to ourselves, but we already lived that life, right? The thing is, we needed to save ourselves from attackers and all that. And so that flash that happened and going into the inner earth, I do think that now in this life, this is what happened to the whole planet,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
it's funny because when you're mentioning that, and even then when we had the session, I understood also why I was seeing this, because I was like, this is exactly what's going on.
Yeah,
Exactly what's going on.
yeah.
And it was just very interesting to see how similar everything's.
Well, and also especially to feel and to get out on, well, you didn't get out on the other side so much as you went through it, and then that's where it stopped. But for me, it was, we got out on the other side, and that was mind blowing, because now in the situation that we are now, we're like, oh my God, when is it ever going to end? And I'm fed up with this and all these divisions and all the ego and all that, right? But now I found myself on that other side, and it was like bliss,
Mm,
right? All of a sudden, all that negativity is gone. And I do believe we're going to experience something similar here, you know,
yeah.
in the same matter with now, whether that's with a flash or whatever, but it did happen like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
almost feel like I don't know if we'll feel it like that kind of instant, that it just happens. I don't Do you listen to Bashar, Patricia?
oh, I haven't listened to it for a while.
No. Well, he explained something very interesting, how like the two realities start splitting off, like the
Right. Which
people.
is happening now
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, and he explained something really interesting. It's like two trains that are starting at the same point, right? And you can still see the other train, right? And this is like the ego, all the disaster and chaos. And then we're on this other train that it's like love, unity, etc., etc. And slowly these trains are starting to separate, right? And there comes a point where you just don't see the other train anymore, right?
Right.
I love that. I
That
love
is, that makes sense. But because there at that time, we actually went to the inner earth, right? And so you remove yourself from the place that you're at. Well, at this time, we're staying in the place where we are, right?
that.
And that's kind of so somebody oh, Dennis, so is it going to happen in reverse this time? I don't think so. I think it's pretty much the same, only at that time we all of a sudden, well, I experienced it in the session. All of a sudden, there was this flash, and all of a sudden, we found ourselves there in the in Earth. Now, I guess what happened here rather is that yes, we did experience also, but we found ourselves right before that moment. So everything before that, we don't know exactly how it went, but wow, tensions were high, right? You could feel the tensions, you could feel that pressure of, that division pressure on you, a bit like we do now.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember feeling that.
Yeah, it was chaotic. That is the word.
Yeah, like I felt agitated. I felt like my body didn't even know where it wanted to go because it just wanted to go everywhere, right? That's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
the energy that I felt.
Yeah, because also we knew that everything was going to kind of fall,
Yes.
right, in this case. And so I'm actually wondering, because there are people that have this scenario where the earth is going to tilt, and so there's going to be water and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if that would happen here as well. You know, because somehow it felt like you were like on the precipice to lose everything that's under your feet, kind of thing. And that's when it happened.
Yeah.
Right. And so, well, will that happen here? You don't want to put fear in people, because at the end of the day, there's really nothing to fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you might just find yourself all of a sudden on this different earth, wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of the idea I get. And at the time, it was the age of Leo, which is the exact opposite of what it's now, which is the age of Aquarius. And so, what Matthias and Stefano talked about is that we are literally picking up where they left off. And so, I guess, well, I cannot predict how it will go now, but I know the feeling. And I
Mm.
also know the feeling, what it's like to be on the other side when you're out of it. It's like, wow, it's like you're in so much chaos, and all of a sudden, boom, it's all gone. And
Mm.
there's peace. And you can actually hear yourself thinking again, sort of.
Wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
who knows? It might happen that way, or it might just be a very slow, subtle transition. Who knows, right?
But at the same time, as you know, people can feel it all over the place, right? We all feel agitated,
Yeah.
and you can be as spiritual as you want. I don't think everybody can escape completely that agitation, that because you feel it. All you can do is take yourself out of it and try to find your center. And so, and that's what the whole training is about, I would say, is keep staying in that center as often as you can. And it doesn't mean you sometimes get thrown off, right? Because we all do. And yeah, but and keep raising that vibration. And what Bashar said, what you said about the train, right, splitting, if I can't remember who said it. I think it was actually also Matthias and Stefano who said it in an interview. If you raise your vibration, the lower vibration cannot see you.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And that's vice versa the same. So when you are, a lower vibration, can't you see you, but you can't see the lower vibration either, because you create your own reality. Which I assume that slowly becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, that gap.
Yes. And I think it's the little hints that happen throughout your day-to-day where you actually start to see that something's shifting, because even for me, I start to notice more things that it's headed more to a positive timeline, right? I like using timelines, right?
Right.
And I think it's noticing that. And the more you concentrate on those things, you shift even further into the more positive timeline, right?
Right. And here's another thing I learned this week. All of a sudden it hit me. So you know how people say when you're a bit down, whatever, you create your own reality. And yeah, you're like, well, yeah, whatever. Right. I feel like crap right now, so I'm not into that. But obviously, we know that we create our own reality. And, once you've experienced that for yourself and you notice it more and more. And so then I thought we need to stop saying you create your own reality, because if you actually rephrase that, it becomes a complete different thing. And I decided I'm going to rephrase it to, I am responsible for my own reality. And so when you say you are responsible for your own reality, you are much more in kind of a warrior kind of mode, instead of like, oh yeah, I create my reality, so oh yeah, how did I do that again? Well, if you say I'm responsible for my own reality, the whole mindset change.
Oh yeah, I love that. I really
love
that. Yeah.
So I think it's time for us, for everybody, to not say anymore we create our own reality. No, we are responsible for our own reality, because we already know that we can create it.
Yes.
So it automatically becomes now a thing that is, a minute to minute basis, because, you need to live like you're constantly creating that reality. Therefore, you take responsibility for it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a whole different mindset. I love it.
Right?
It's just on words, right?
I love it too. So with that, I think we can close it off, because you know what, we actually put this circle round as beginning about the session, and I really wanted to hear your take on it from, and although I knew that you didn't have that much memory of that session anymore as it's been so long, but in any case, the whole experience itself, the fact that you can both be in that same place and actually describe it so accurately, then you know that you were there.
Yeah. And honestly, you did such a good job of putting it together in that YouTube video, and all the pictures that you used. It was just, like I said, it's like you were in my head and you saw all those things, and I was just like, it was so well done. So well done.
And some pictures were actually Atlantis, or what people refer to as Atlantis, and I knew that, but I couldn't find any other replacement, so I just used it just for the reference. But many pictures, like from the house inside as well, which is kind of, it's these new 3D printed houses.
Yeah.
And I thought that is exactly a bit what it was like, because it does feel a bit like luxury, but on the outside it doesn't look luxurious at all, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope to get actually more sessions that are so interesting, and I will put pictures together, because the thing is, I do see what they see, and so it makes it only more beautiful that you actually have a visual
Oh
of
yeah.
that.
It puts the
So
story together, right?
exactly. So tell people where they can find you and what you do so that, they know why they need to find you.
So, like Patricia, I do BQH sessions, but I also do more trauma releasing hypnotherapy sessions. And I know for some people they combine BQH with the trauma, but for me, for whatever reason, it's been BQH is more like the spiritual world,
Yes.
diving into that, into your past lives, future lives. And it's a beautiful thing. And then I have my trauma release where we actually look at the trauma aspect and see where that comes from. Because oftentimes it is from our current life and why certain things keep repeating in your life, right? It's important to find the root cause. And again, of course, sometimes that is from a past life, but I find most of the time it is from the current life, which is okay, right? We need to
Right.
release that stuff in
So in
order.
those hypnosis sessions, you really are focused on this life.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Like I said, for whatever reason, for me, it's been if people come for a BQH, they usually will have like this beautiful spiritual journey. Of course, there are some things that they release,
Yeah.
but yeah, the trauma ones are more deeply rooted in this life, right? The
Right.
stuff that we have experienced as kids that, keep repeating in our lives, right? And it
Right.
needs to be seen, it needs to be looked at in order for it to be released so that we stop repeating the same patterns over and over again. But yeah,
Right.
so I'm just at www.alexaceza.com. My Instagram handle is also the same, and my YouTube is the same. It's just Alexa Ceza, which I
Yeah,
think.
you put out some short videos as well, which are fun, and your session. So for anybody who wants to find it, it's in the description. All three links from her, and or if you want to book a session with her, you can find it on her website, which is there as well. And thank you so much for being here. That was a lot of fun, and maybe people can get something out of it, and learning also more about what is BQH and
Mhm.
how does it work and what can you encounter. So yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you
And
for having me and even having this discussion with about our sessions. It was beautiful to revisit.
oh, yeah, that was worth it, wasn't it? So
Yes.
thank you all for being here in the chat. And I'll see you again probably on Thursday because I will have Peter Moon on. So that's going to be fun. Or it will be on Monday. I'm not sure yet. Okay. Thank you all and peace out.